Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be making a 30-ounce split cup with glitter, a Stickercal for my website, and pattern vinyl. So I started off with a piece of printed pattern vinyl from printedvinyl.com and a 30-ounce no taper skinny from Griffin Blanks. All of the supplies and materials that I use in this video will be linked in the description below, and some will also include discount codes. So I cut about 5.5 inches, which will be the shortest side of my design. That way I'm not wasting any vinyl. Now, how much you cut will vary on the size cup that you're using and how much you want the pattern vinyl to cover the cup. So I wrapped it around and saw that that was about the size that I wanted. I then proceeded to measure the circumference of the tumbler, which was about 10 inches, using a retractable measuring tape. And then I cut off an inch from each side. I then proceeded to cut off a little bit more to make it 5 inches, but once I wrapped it around the cup, I realized that the edges did not match up and it was slightly uneven. So I went back to find out which side was uneven so that I could make it straight, because with a no taper cup, you do not need to worry about any type of taper and it messing up your vinyl. So next I use this handy dandy little measuring square to measure out an inch from the bottom of the cup. And I take a Sharpie and I go all the way around the cup, making little marks so that I could evenly place my vinyl. Now, the best thing about no taper cups is you really actually don't need a Cricut or any type of vinyl cutting machine, because there is no taper, so there's no templates that you need or anything like that. So I wrapped the vinyl around the cup where I had the line marks lined up at the bottom and made sure that everything was even and square. And then I took some scotch tape and laid down part of the printed vinyl. Now, I recommend using painter's tape because it's easier to pull up than scotch tape. I actually had to use my pen to pull the scotch tape up. But as you can see, it's perfectly wrapped around, which is the greatest benefit of a no taper cup. There's just so much you can do with a lot less work. So again, I'm using scotch tape here. Highly do not recommend doing that because it is a pain to get off. So then I take a piece of the backing and pull it off and cut it with my little rotary cutter. And then I make sure that the vinyl is lined up to the lines that I made. And then I pull up the tape that I have so that I can lay down the vinyl that no longer has the paper backing. So once I take forever to get rid of the scotch tape, again, recommend painter's tape, I move that and then lay down the vinyl and make sure it is pressed down thoroughly. I then make sure that the cup is still lined up because there's still time to make changes if I need to. And then what I do is I just start wrapping it around and using my fingers to make sure that there are no bubbles at all. Now, you can use a vinyl scraper for this or a squeegee, or you can just use your fingers. It's up to you. I go around and make sure that there are no bubbles and push out any bubbles that I do see. I then take painter's tape and I cover up the pattern vinyl portion so that I can spray paint the base of the cup in order to lay down the glitter that I want to lay down. So I did spray paint with a white and a black at the bottom, and then I used a very small amount of epoxy to cover the painted portions of the cup. There is a lot of epoxy in the cup that I'm using, but that's because I was using it for a couple different things. So I cover the bottom with a basic Blackboard, which is a black glitter from Peachy Glitters. And then I also use Bliss, which is one of my favorite whites. It sparkles like no other, for the top portion. Now, I used Counterculture CC DIY Fast Set for both of these, and you really only need like 2 milliliters, if that, to cover your cup for the glitter. Since I used Fast Set, it only took about 2 hours for this to dry, but I'm actually doing a flood coat, so it was about 15 minutes to 20 minutes, basically when the glitter is no longer movable, so that I could lay down this flood coat, which was maybe 20 milliliters of epoxy, and I did the flood coat with Fast Set. Now, if you're using regular epoxy, I recommend waiting for it to cure or waiting about 2 hours. After I lay down the Fast Set flood coat, I then pull off the painter's tape about 15 to 20 minutes after it's been spinning. pulling the tape while the epoxy is still curing makes sure that the painter's tape does not rip. Now, I like painter's tape. I'm more of an electrical tape gal because it is more sturdy, durable, and the fact that if you forget to pull the tape, it won't rip and then cause you to have to use a razor knife to pull it up. So because I was pretty adamant with this cup, I used painter's tape. Once the epoxy was completely cured, it was time for me to lay down my Stickercal, which is available on my website. Now, you do not want to sand prior to applying these because you will see the sanding marks under the decal. Now, these decals are super easy to apply. I just peel off a part of it from the backing, cut off that part of the backing, and then make sure that it is straight and where I want it on my tumbler. You can use your finger to make sure that it is completely stuck to the cup all the way around, all the edges and everything else, and you can use a vinyl scraper to push out any bubbles. It will not ruin the design. You can wipe it with alcohol, acetone, goof off. These are super durable. There is no sealing or waiting time, so you can immediately epoxy afterwards. Because this is a 30-ounce tumbler, I use approximately 20 milliliters to 30 milliliters on this coat of epoxy. For the base and the glitter, I did use Fast Set, but for the rest of the layers of the cup, I used Counterculture DIY Medium Viscosity. And once that layer was cured, about 8 to 10 hours later, I went ahead and applied my vinyl stripes. Now, these I did cut with my vinyl cutter. These are Oracle 631 pieces of vinyl. I make these strips on Cricut Design Space by taking the square shape and changing the length and width of it. So the first strips I laid down were approximately 0.10 by 11, and the second layer of strips that went through the middle was approximately 0.05 by 11. When doing strips like this, it is better to start the strip towards the seam of it like I did on the backing here so that you don't see the line at the front of the cup. Now, this takes a little bit of patience. This is fast forwarded a little bit. I actually did not do that this fast. So take your time, no rush, and then once it is exactly how you want it, you're going to go ahead and add your few final layers of epoxy. So again, I use medium viscosity for the rest of my cup, and I laid down this layer. I did sand it a little bit after this with a sanding block, and then lay down one final layer, and it was done. There are endless possibilities with pattern vinyl and decals and glitter when it comes to split cups. There is literally unlimited combinations that you can do. This is definitely one of my favorite cups, and it's actually one of my favorite designs I have in my Stickercals. So thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe, hit the little notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.